This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're doing a making of wrap up and our pub quiz answers in this episode.
I loved She-Hulk so much even then that I put her into my Black Widow pitch. I think at one point he even said, like, kind of feels like you're pitching a She-Hulk story with Black Widow in it. And I said, guilty. So when I didn't get that job, my parting shot to them was, if you ever do She-Hulk, you better call me. Because if you don't, I will come back and burn this building to the ground. And then Kevin makes the announcement that they're going to do She-Hulk as a series. And I'm furious because I look at my phone. I'm like, I don't have any missed calls from Marvel Studios. I told them what would happen. And my fiance was, of course, like, chill out, dude. And then literally the next day I got a call, from Marvel to see if I wanted to pitch on She-Hulk. And of course I was like, I think I heard something about an announcement.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to a special wrap-up, making of, and pub quiz episode of TV Podcast Industries. This time we're talking about Marvel Assembled, the making of She-Hulk, Director by Night, the making of Werewolf by Night, and we're also going to be crowning two champions in this episode. We're going to be crowning the champion of our She-Hulk bar exam and of our Umbrella Academy Obsidian bar quiz. Oh, that was a mouthful. Lots going on. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John, and introducing our newest member of our team.
Hi, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you all.
He's back.
Yay!
Welcome back, Chris.
Yes, thank you. I have been summoned back from my banishment of in the mirror universe or in one of the multiversal kind of. I was in 616 and then I was in 1022 and now I'm back in Ireland. Yeah, Ireland's its own universe in the multiverse of the MCU, by the way.
See,
I don't know why.
I just thought you'd broken through the fourth wall and we're running around the back lot of the podcast room.
Well, we've still got to start drafting our script for Banshee.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. We do have to do that.
Yes, fellow Defenders, welcome back. If you missed that, the proposal that we've come up with to make our names big in the MCU is that we're going to be writing the script for the Irish character Banshee. That seems to be the way this works, doesn't it? Well, yeah. Unfortunately, as these documentaries tell us, there's a lot more work goes into becoming a writer-director for Marvel than just having a basic idea and happening to be from the country. So we will be breaking right into it as we go through our discussions about the making of these two Marvel shows.
Yeah, we just need a Grammy, an Emmy, an Academy Award, and a few other things just kind of thrown in. Emmy? A Tony.
What's the Grammy for?
Michael Giacchino.
Yeah, but it's music.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino won many Emmys, lots of Oscars, lots of awards for his music, and then got a directing job.
Okay, grand.
Yes. So we just need to become amazing in our other fields, and then go to Kevin and go, yo, we do stuff that is completely sidestepping what we want to direct and write, but just let us direct and write.
I think he'd probably respond with, directly after you said yo, he'd say no, Chris. I think that would be a direct response.
I think he'd actually go, yo, and he'd go, who the hell are you and how'd you get in my room?
Exactly.
That would probably be more.
I would also like to add, I am amazing in what I do at the moment. It's just there's no relationship to, yes, I guess writing a script for a movie.
That's very true. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome along to our very weird discussion at the moment. We don't normally go this weird at the start of a podcast. If you do want to subscribe to the podcast, you can pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where we have lots of ways to subscribe to our podcast. We cover tons and tons of shows. At the moment, mostly Marvel, but we're on a bit of a break from Marvel at the moment because She-Hulk has just finished, and Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special, is coming out in a couple of weeks' time. So in between that break, we usually do a wrap-up of our of the previous show as well. But if you want to catch up on all the stuff we've covered, pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. You can also send in any feedback to us on any of the shows that we're covering by emailing us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or join us over on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. We are on Twitter while it still lasts. You can catch us there at TV Pod Industries, or go over to Instagram. It's probably going to last a little longer. We are TV Podcast Industries over there as well. Hopefully we'll hear from you. But guys, let's jump into our discussion of, firstly, let's go with Marvel Assembled, the making of She-Hulk. So once again, with the Assemble documentaries, a kind of a behind the scenes look at the making of the show. These are, we've said before, these have mostly interviews with the cast and crew, usually quite lighthearted, not usually that in depth. I want to jump into my marvelous moment, number one for this episode, which is really, we did get a pretty deep discussion about the CGI involved in creating this character of She-Hulk for the show. And this, a 9-episode series where your central character is fully CGI'd throughout the show, and kind of the challenges that they talked about there. I thought that was a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, this was really cool. Like, the different sets they had, where like they had one where they set up with a volume, they had the other where it was just kind of like the more on location styled kind of different variations to keep her, like Tatiana, in kind of in where she was supposed to be. Plus, then they had her other stunt double, the actual 6'7" woman, 6'4" woman, and
Malia,
then
6'7".
Yep.
Yes. And then just the how they went through it all. I did not note. I should have copped it from my years of playing video games, but because She-Hulk has long flowing hair, that was one of the most hardest parts for them. And it was only that after I watched the making of it, I went, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to jump back really quickly. And they animated a lot of individual hair strands. It wasn't just like, here's a big clump of hair and put it on and it all moves as one. Yeah. Like, they had the little flicks at the bottom.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's one of those interesting ones. And we don't normally talk about the kind of crap that's spoken on the internet when these shows are on. You always find people that are going to complain about stuff. But it was such a massive, ambitious task to have your central character in a show like this, and a weekly half-hour comedy, effectively, being a CGI created character.
Yeah.
The way they talked about it, as you said, Chris, they have their two different versions of the setup, which is an optical setup where all of the filming is being done in one location. It takes a long time to set up, but it gets a great version of the character. So that's what's used for video games, for example. When God of War is done, or when Uncharted's filmed, they film it in this way. It's all set up perfectly. You calibrate everything looks great. And then they have the other version of it, which is the inertial version of it, which they use in motion when there's loads of other people around, or when they're just filming on the street effectively for a couple of minutes, or for a couple of scenes. And that stuff is much less precise. And the amount of moaning that went on about how terrible the CGI was when they were using, for some of the setups, the best possible technology available in the world. And the reason why it looks different from certain scenes to other scenes is because they are pushing the technology to its absolute biggest degree, really. Yeah. They're pushing it to the furthest they can get, so they can still deal with the drama and the comedy of a real television show. It's not just a tech demo here. It's about showing that they can have this character at the center of it, which I just thought was a really interesting part of the documentary.
But I loved how this all set up as well, in terms of the initial production, the brainstorming, I guess, how were they going to do the show? That, were they going to do it Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno style, like we got in the series as well, but decided on this CGI? And you've mentioned kind of that high tech stuff, but even just, having the stunt double, as Chris has said, to do certain scenes. I love that they animated certain transformations or transitions on camera, like the one with it going from Tatiana to She-Hulk effectively, and that was ripening strawberries was the inspiration for that kind of the way that transition took place. I thought that was really interesting. And then seeing like with all the shots, you know, certainly with Ruffalo and Tatiana, just with all the dots on the face, the head-mounted cameras, sort of doing their thing, but then also the prosthetic add-ons that they use, where you've just got Ruffalo with a prosthetic forearm banging on his bar. So I thought this was one of the best sort of take-throughs of CGI of any of them. And yes, it's because the central character, the title character, is CGI, but I mean, there's certainly plenty of CGI going on in the others, even if it's just, you know, sort of much more subtle.
100%.
So, I really kind of enjoyed this part of it. That, along with just Jessica Gao basically saying how her Black Widow pitch had quite a lot of She-Hulk in it, and they should consider her for a She-Hulk series, or she would burn Marvel to the ground.
Loved it. Love Jessica Gao here. You can tell her passion and how much fun she brought to the show. I loved her talking about, you know, the idea that they wanted to have a comedian. The person has to have, you know, years worth of experience in stand-up, years worth of experience as a comedy actress. And the proposal that was given to her was, how about we bring in Tatiana Maslany, who's done 7 seasons of a drama show? And it worked out brilliantly. Tatiana Maslany slid into that role of and was able to deliver the comedy really well for the series. I thought that was another great moment from her. Anything else from the behind the scenes, Chris, for She-Hulk that stood out to you about the people behind the camera?
Yeah, no, the biggest one for me was just the discussion, i.e. the kind of, my marvelous moment was really that they were going to do the standard Marvel fair ending initially. And that just midway kind of through was the decision was like, this is not working. We need something different. It's just not sitting right. And they went through different iterations, and then they spoke to Kevin. So again, we are seeing how much of a hand Kevin Feige has in these things. He is similar to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau from the Star Wars now. They are, well, you could actually even say Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah. But like, close definitely like, they have their fingers in these and are steering this ship at times. And it was interesting to see and hear about when they kind of went, well, what does she do? She breaks the fourth wall. Okay. Well, they had already incorporated that. Well, why doesn't she come into the real world? And you're like, oh, okay, that brings it into these bigger discussions. And for me, that was just, it was good to see, because that ending for me was still one of the freshest, and I don't mean kind of right, but it was just unique. It was such a breath of fresh air, which this whole show was. But if they had have kind of kept with that very standard, similar powered people fighting CGI slugfest for 15 minutes at the end of or 10 minutes or 5 minutes at the end of that season, we all would have gone, grand, yeah, fine. Like, it was good up to a point, and then it would just be forgotten with history. Exactly. Now, I am very much in that, oh no, they can go anywhere with this now. They can do Deadpool level stuff, minus the gore and violence and R-ratedness. But, well, maybe, who knows. But they could go anywhere, and I think that's one of the biggest, like, I still want to see Wongers on a spin-off with Madison. Like, they could do, you remember the one-shots we used to get in between the film? You could do a one-shot with
definitely
Wongers and Madison go shopping, or like YouTube them, have them on YouTube as little shorts, them kind of reviewing like Sopranos and Lost and like Jojo Rabbit and all these, them doing TV shows and film reviews. Like, that would be hilarious. And it's all now because of the uniqueness of the show. And it is now, I'm more excited about the possibilities of the future, because they were essentially given an almost like, okay, yeah, go for it. If this isn't working for you, go do something different.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's like, for me, I love the fact that, you know, with them struggling with the ending, Kevin Feige effectively, you know, freed up the writers to think outside of the box, do something different. You know, not that sort of traditional Marvel movie kind of ending. And even though, because, you know, part of the joke was that that's what it was building to, and then you have the break, And I love the fact that even just doing that initial setup, and just referring back to what we were saying about the CGI, is that there were 4 CGI characters in that scene, which was really, really challenging, really big kind of production element, and with the post-production. So, because you had Todd Hulk, the Hulk, She-Hulk, as well as Abomination. So, even though that was the riff and initial setup for the breaking of the fourth wall, it still required all that CGI character work, which I thought was good. And finally on this, they really do need to bring back one-shots, because like yourself, Chris, I want to see Wongers and Madison in a one-shot, because it wasn't that such a great way of further exploring characters that popped on, at least in the movies to begin with. Yeah. And which ultimately led, at least with Peggy Carter's one shot, to her having a 3-season show.
Absolutely, and some would argue that there was the one shot with Agent Coulson led to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. We had that after his first appearance in Thor. He had that going into Avengers and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So one shots are massive things. Of course, now having the TV series on Disney Plus gives them the ability to expand and look at different characters in different ways. So we could just see an appearance of Wongers, as we're saying, of those two characters together in another show on Disney Plus now in the future. That could be the way they'll do it. So they may not create 3-minute shorts anymore, but we absolutely could have the appearance of those characters. Benedict Wong seems to absolutely love his time appearing in shows, and I think if you asked him to appear in any of the Marvel shows, he'll pop up. I think he just walks around in his Wong costume at all times. He just wants to meet everybody in the cast of the MCU. And that was kind of the other half of the show. The first half was, everybody behind the scenes, from directors and writers, saying how much they were involved in the project. And then the main cast, of course. And then the second half of the show was talking about all the people that came on board throughout the series. Lots of day players, as Tatiana Maslany called them, people that were in for an episode here and there, which was interesting. But I will say that's the part that I think there was just a bit too much of. Yes. It's almost half an hour of that. And it's probably because with a 9-episode show where there were at least 3 or 4 different new characters every episode, everybody was getting a moment to talk to camera, and it just felt like there was just a lot of that there. And I'd still like to have a bit more of the making of with these documentaries. I always prefer the behind the scenes stuff rather than having the actors talk. But
definitely,
the one standout, again, just like in the show, was Patty Guggenheim, who played Madison. I think she just comes across hilarious again in front of the camera when she's being interviewed. They talk about the fact that she plays drunk really well, and she goes, well, I've been practicing my whole life for this role. Which I thought was really good fun. So yes, you are, I agree with both of you. I'd love to see more of her with Wong again in the future, but I think we might get it as a little 3-minute throwaway in a future show.
They did drop one potential tidbit, which is Donnie Blaze's real name is not Donnie Blaze.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're not going to say his name was actually Johnny and he changed it to Donnie. It's going to be like something like that. And I was like, or Donald Blake, something very silly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was an interesting one. Though, look, I'm in agreement with you. That started when they brought Mr. Immortal, when they brought the individual, every single kind of big player. They brought Matt, which was great. We got to see Charlie Cox. Not going to complain, but it took a large chunk of it for me.
It did.
Absolutely. Speaking of Charlie Cox, Chris, we haven't said this to you. Do you know he's working out in Dublin at the moment? He's been filming over in Ireland for the last while. He's working out in Swords, which is about 5 minutes from our house. Should we go?
So you're going so you're going to the gym every week, right?
I haven't gone to the gym in my life. I'm now stalking a gym in Swords.
We've joined a gym.
Yes, you're not working out, but you're in the gym all the time.
We're working out our eyeballs.
There you go.
Look left, look right, look up, look down.
But again, great to see Charlie Cox here, and some, it's really good to see how he was trying to bring them into his family that he created in from the Netflix time in Marvel, and how they were bringing him into this comedy show, which he hadn't done within the MCU before. I thought that was really good fun as well.
Yeah. I mean, I quite liked seeing all the cast. I think it's one of those things where it's a curse and a blessing. I mean, I thought it was really good that they kind of gave everyone their moment a bit. I mean, I just think it could have been done with, sprinkled throughout this, rather than it kind of being this segment where they just sort of, like dominoes, they just tick off the next one. But I was really pleased that they gave everyone that little bit of time, because there were a lot of those, with it being episodic, there were a lot of those sort of one episode characters. Like, I mean, I was really pleased they brought Leapfrog in. Like, the guy who played Leapfrog was just like so excited about it. And rightly so. It was a brilliant episode. I loved Leapfrog in it. Yeah. Having Madison and Donny Blaze, but even like with Runa, the mischievous elf from Asgard, and Mr. Immortal. But I think, the one part I thought that, because I think it just connected to the writing, to the characters, that was really good, was them talking about Tim Roth coming in, where they actually mentioned that he added a depth and complexity to Emil Blonsky, that maybe they hadn't written. I mean, that they were saying that they'd written him much more straight-laced and simple, whereas by the end of it, Tim Roth had kind of brought this whole notion, which really worked in the show, because we were saying, is he the bad guy ultimately? That he brought this depth and complexity where you didn't quite trust him, even though he was saying all the right stuff. And I thought that was really good, because I mean, I loved Tim Roth in this. I've always loved Tim Roth, back from Reservoir Dogs, ultimately. Yeah. And so I was just really chuffed to see him there, and just doing some of his lines as well, at his retreat.
Absolutely. I love the description they gave him as being, he's somewhere between embarrassing, pretentious, and villainous.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, in fact, throughout the conversations we had on the show, and some of the feedback that we got in from our wonderful fellow defenders, I think we had about 3 or 4 people going, I don't trust Tim Roth. Why would you trust Tim Roth? You never trust Tim Roth, so he does bring that to his character. So, really enjoyed that.
And he played with that element of it, I guess. Exactly. But I think some of the highlights for me was both Titania not realizing that she was going to have 6 months of stunt work ahead of her, which I thought was funny.
That's good.
I really liked sort of seeing DJ Wong on set, sort of bringing the party. Yeah. And of course, just then with Daredevil, with the suit fitting, where Charlie Cox thought he was just being brought in to see if the old suit fitted him, but it was then this entirely new concept for the suit that he was getting fitted out for. So, like, there was some really good bits to it. Yeah. But I think you're right. It's kind of like, it somehow needs to be connected with the making of, which I thought certainly the Tim Roth element and Daredevil element was, certainly. But it was either just they were too short and didn't go enough into detail, or, again, it's whether some of the Marvel Assembled is about having these pieces that ultimately can be done for promotion at the start,
Do you know, I'll come back to what we always have said, when you're doing commentary on an episode of a show, you can get into those specific details, but when you're doing a wrap-up at the end of the series, it does have to look a bit different, because I think all of this stuff is really interesting, fun information, but as you say, because it's a minute of each individual actor, back to back to back to back to back, it feels like it's overloaded with in this section anyway, overloaded with just sound bites, as opposed to something that could have been released after each individual episode where they've had their interviews. I even liked, Griffin Matthews, who played Luke, the tailor, saying that he took some of his inspiration for the character from when he walked around the tailors for Marvel, the people that created all those costumes. He took a bit of inspiration for his character there. I thought that was lots of fun, Seeing Josh Segarra talking about how much he loves being in the MCU, play Pug, his love for being able to bring a character to life from the comic book. That was great too, and of course, Ginger Gonzaga, who was fantastic on the show. She was absolutely perfect on the show, and you can see that they really needed to make that work on the show, or else the show wouldn't have worked. And you can see how much work goes in behind the scenes, and she is hilarious.
Well, I loved how Tatiana said she is the sharpest person, way brainier, able to sort of improvise on a dime effectively. And it was really good.
Yeah.
And even just when they showed, I think it was in the law offices, and Tatiana's got a pole coming out of her head effectively with the face of She-Hulk on it. And you see Ginger, because that's the eye line, that's the reference to look when speaking to her past Tatiana's face and actually talking to just a flat mask.
Yeah.
And I was just there going, if I was there, I would still be looking at Tatiana, because it's just that discipline of looking beyond the person.
Yeah, but it's also that
really
in
good.
that scene she's delivering 5 different ad libs for the director to use. She's calling multiple jokes out over and over again while making the eye line every single time as well. Like that's acting, of course, but she's hilarious. She's really good fun.
Yeah.
Chris, anything else that you thought stood out to you about the cast or crew?
An actual standout was we didn't get a discussion on the ending. In that, like, the post-credit, where we see that Matt and Jennifer are together or dating or something, and we see Hulk come back with his son.
Yeah.
Going into this, I was like, oh, they don't have to tell me where the Hulks are going to appear next, because that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Although we now have post-October, multiple rumors of World War Hulk, a movie which is going to be very interesting, since Hulk rights are tied up very strangely.
Yeah.
But
crossed.
also, just really, like, why they thought to bring Scar in. Was this, like, one of those interesting, like, hey, you need to write a scene where you're going to be able to bring in the Hulk's son, or something like that. I was just hoping for a bit more in kind of return after the 1 or 2 day player, kind of interviews, to jump back into the writers and why they did X or Y, things like that. We just didn't get that. And that's one thing I keep missing out on a lot of these assembled pieces, which is just, I'd love to know more about the script, the writing process, where you drew inspiration.
Yeah.
We got a taste of it when she started talking about why she chose the fourth wall breaking, because it was all in the comic books. And when she was pitching, when she had to come back and pitch, she went to her husband's house and read through all his old original 80s.
Well, that's
87
it. That's it. But even the fact that actually the first 4 episodes had mid-credit scenes, like what was the choice behind that, let alone just the final one? Because I guess the reason they don't go too much into that is because that's the intriguing, salivating nugget that's left behind for when Scar appears in another show. I'm guessing, but nonetheless they made a conscious choice for at least the first 3-4 episodes to have a mid-credit scene on that episode, but we don't know why. I mean, do you know? Yeah. So I think that would have been really, really good. Just to, again, that's part of the making of why they just made those choices, why they thought this was good. Why did it stop then from the end of the 4th episode? So those kind of little sort of nuances in the making of, I think, would really help the making of.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be really interesting. But I do think they do have that challenge with these assembled documentaries. They're not as in depth as documentaries. They tend to have pieces, pull them together, moments with the cast on the set as they're coming in and out for their day on set, and then assemble it at the end at the end of the series. It's definitely we have never had a moment where they tell you what's going to happen in the future of the MCU or going to happen in the future of a series. We don't have a season 2 confirmed, and we don't have a next appearance confirmed for She-Hulk, if there ever is one. So they're not going to tell you what's going on in their minds in case they want to choose a different path for that. But there would have been a great addition, definitely. Yeah. We have a little bit of feedback on She-Hulk from our fellow defenders, and of course we have our She-Hulk bar exam to get to. But any final thoughts on Marvel Assembled, the making of She-Hulk?
I have 2. One, Kevin had a hat.
Of course, yes.
I loved that. I love the fact that also Kevin Feige said that would be stupid if he had a hat, and then so they worked it so it looked like he had a hat. I thought that was nice.
I loved all the drawings of alternative KVIN, which, like, you know, everything from a massive robot, square robot with a cap sitting on its head. I love that. I
really enjoyed that part of the making of She-Hulk. And the other thing, it was actually really good to hear from Mark Ruffalo, as he said himself, he's been this character for the last 10 years. And it was kind of how open he was to bring in the comedy and do that side of it in this very different context, but also being really open with Tatiana in terms of, I guess, the Hulk as a character, so that she can play off it, contrast in terms of how her Hulk is, all that. So I really enjoyed seeing Mark Ruffalo here, just having that bit of moment, because sometimes it's not that I feel sorry for Mark Ruffalo, but in a sense, he has this character where it can't be the main part of the MCU movie because of the rights issue.
Exactly.
And he's such a good actor. I've loved him in so many other things. And I just thought that whole little segment with the two of them was just really shows what a good, genuine guy Ruffalo is. Absolutely. For me. And I liked how, he's willing to do, this whole new kind of direction of the comedy angle for this show. So I thought that was good as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else from myself, just kind of enjoyed what was the beginning, and then kind of the rest of the marketing was interesting and fun, but kind of overall just, it was a fair to good assembled.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, that's a good point, Chris. Yeah, we've been a bit hard on the other assembles that we've seen throughout the Marvel TV shows. Some of them very light, some of them have just been press junkets. I'd say this one is slightly more interesting to me because they have the whole discussion on the CGI and how it was done.
Yes,
I thought that in itself felt quite in depth as a part of the documentary. So good stuff. Right, let's pop on over some feedback on She-Hulk. We have a couple of pieces that came in after the finale. Starting off with an email that we got into feedback at TV Podcast Industries from Lord Elric, who says, "Greetings, guys. I found you way back when you were doing Wheel of Time and loved your content and banter. It took me this long to catch up, not every single episode, and to finally comment on a show that I'm watching along with you. I loved She-Hulk and had a lot of fun watching and listening to your responses. The finale intro was so awesome. Love the Incredible Hulk homage. Watched as a kid. The ending was not what I was expecting, but nothing in this show is typical, which was her message and meta ending. I loved how much fun this finale and show was, and look forward to a second season. Or a cameo on Daredevil, maybe? By the way, does the Hulk have a son? Thanks again. You guys are great, and I will be watching all the shows I love and watch. Keep up with the great content. If you had pullmeapint.com, I might just tip a glass with you. Lord Elric." Very good, Lord Elric. Referencing our buymeacoffee.com, where you can support TV Podcast Industries. So pullmeapint.com /TVPI, coming soon.
Yes.
Well, you could just buy me a coffee and we'll just add the
We'll just buy a
whiskey to
pint
make
with
it
it anyway.
Irish.
There you go.
We'll Irish up the coffee. There you
Well,
go.
the price that pints are going at the moment, we should really get that IP.
Very true. Very true. Good stuff. Great to have you on board of this, Lord Elric. And great that you've been catching up since Wheel of Time. We're going to be back with Wheel of Time next year when it returns to Prime Video.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Lord Elric, really glad you've enjoyed listening along to us, certainly on Wheel of Time, because I think the first few was just Chris and myself. So I think that was pressure at the time, doing that without the producer slash, dictator with us.
That's the one.
So, it was, glad you found us through Wheel of Time for sure, because I can't wait to do season 2.
Yes.
For sure.
That should be fun. Should be fun.
And Lord Elric, if you want, check out Planet Hulk and then the ensuing World War Hulk comic series if you want to know more about
Hulk's
son.
son.
Yes.
Scar. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Great stuff. We also got an email in from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings, fellow defense wrestling defenders. At its core, the fight for the platform to control their own narrative was pretty intense, yet made funny and fun. Jessica Gay should be given any project she wants. Not much else to say other than refusing to be tricked once again. I'm claiming that Todd was just a mindless mid-manager and the leader actually runs the organization. Also that Holden Holloway was actually Mephisto having a bit of corporate fun. Best scene in the series, the Disney menu punch through. Best guest star appearance, Wong. 5 meta mind melds out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. What was your best guest star appearance of the series, guys? Chris, what's your favourite guest star appearance of the series?
Daredevil. I'm taking Matt Murdock. I'm taking Charlie Cox. There you go.
John?
I can't just do one, to be honest, as I never can. Daredevil, absolutely. Tim Roth, for sure.
Abomination, yeah.
And I'm going to do another tier for the smaller, maybe episodic characters, but absolutely Madison because of the connection with Wong.
Yeah.
And Leapfrog. I would watch
A bit more him.
more Leapfrog. I think it's a great concept. And actually, with the making of the suit, I knew the suit was kind of to look like a frog, but the drawings of it made it even more so.
Yeah, the concept art
for
was
sure.
great.
Yeah. So, I would definitely, I think Madison and Leapfrog, yes, are my two, smaller characters. There.
Excellent. I agree with both of you. Thanks very much, Coffee and Vodka. Phil Bootle over on Facebook said, just finally watched the last episode of She-Hulk. Loved the inventiveness of it. Listen to the podcast now. As always, I feel it kinship to the governor's broadcasting it. I did not hear about the QR code I spotted on the door of Marvel Studios. Surely I can't be alone in following it to an offer that might be of interest to some. Very good pointing out there, Phil. We noticed them back in Moon Knight and forgot to point them out in She-Hulk. There are QR codes in most of the episodes of She-Hulk leading into comics that you may want to read. The one in the finale, as Jennifer is going through the doors of Marvel Studios, the QR code that's there leads you to issue number 50 of She-Hulk, which was where she broke the fourth wall when the original writer of the comic books died, and she wanted to break out of what he was writing for. That's when she broke through the fourth wall. So it's a great comic to read. So go back to the episode, scan the QR code. The comic's free as well, so go check it out.
Yep. Thank you so much, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
The final piece of feedback comes from John Daniels, who had this to say. This is a delightful edition of Assembled. I love all the interviews with Tatiana and Mark in their full mocap suits and behind the scenes. They're both such goofballs and just so good at their jobs. All of the behind the scenes just made me wish I could be a fly on the wall for the entire production of the series. I was a little sad there wasn't any chatter or hint about a season 2, but I'm holding out hope. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think we all are. I think that we'll definitely see She-Hulk in the 2 new Avengers, which are like 2028 and 2027, I think. I think those are the scheduled times, but we'll see. So we'll definitely see her there.
Hope so.
But, because you would assume it's the same as kind of Endgame and Infinity War, they'll just bring everyone together.
Yeah, there's some quote going around on the internet that they want to have every named character, every named MCU character that's alive to appear in those shows to make it bigger than Endgame. That's the quote that's out there, apparently.
And also, John, don't be a fly on the wall. Certainly not when Leapfrog is around.
There you go.
You might be eaten up.
Nice job. Nice. Maybe just get a job as a stagehand rather than being a fly.
Or just break the fourth wall and break in.
Something like that. Good stuff. Thanks, John. One more piece of business on She-Hulk to close out our full coverage of the season. John, your favourite time again. Let's pop on over and start the bar exam.
Are you saying exams are my favourite part of my time? Because I can assure you...
Well, setting the
bar.
questions. How about that?
The bar, yeah, exactly.
And setting the questions, since you did set all the questions for the season. Let's kick off with our question about episode number 1 of She-Hulk, A Normal Amount of Rage. The question was, what is written on Jennifer's white t-shirt as she fights her cousin Smart Hulk? It was, I Heart Mexico.
It certainly was. Episode 2, which was Superhuman Law. The question was, how many jobs is Jennifer Walters turned down for in person? The answer is 4.
Yes. In episode 3, The People versus Emil Blonsky, the question was, how is Wong's social media presence chaotic? The answer is, he's either a Sorcerer Supreme who lives in New York, or he's a librarian who lives in Nepal.
Yes, very confusing if you're trying to find out who the guy is, right?
Exactly. Mysterious, no less.
Exactly. On episode 4, is this not real magic? The question was, what is the name of the demon that Madison made a deal with to escape the Hell Dimension and get dropped off at Wong's? No, it was not Mephisto, it was Jake.
Yes.
There you go.
AKA Mephisto.
Maybe.
Episode 5, Mean Green and straight poured into these jeans, just a bit like me. The question was, name 3 of Titania's She-Hulk branded beauty products. There was a range from the beauty serum, the beauty oil, the beauty tonic, and the snake venom.
Of course, She-Hulk branded snake venom. Yes.
Yummy.
For the question of episode 6, which was entitled Just Jen, the question is, how many partners is Mr. Mortal negotiating with? The answer is 8. Yes, 8 partners. There you go.
That's right. There's a little bit of confusion on this one. I've done the count, and everybody that's got the question right is in the pot here. But a little bit of confusion on this one because there were I think 6 wives, 2 partners, and a lawyer on the other side of the table. So some people were getting it somewhere between 7 and 9. So I have given a couple of people the correct answer who explained it as to where they came up with their number. So there you go. For episode 7, The Retreat, the question was, what is the name of Emil Blonsky's wellness retreat? It was Summer Twilights.
It certainly was. Yes, we all need to go there for a nice massage and a yurt.
Absolutely. Let's go do yurting.
Yes. For episode 8, Ribbit and Rip It, the question was, if it takes one Daredevil 15 seconds to take out one goon, how long will it take him to take out 10 goons?
Yes, it's not 60 minutes.
No, it is 2.5 minutes or 150 seconds.
Maths, it's your friend.
For episode 9, the finale, entitled Whose Show Is This? The question was, what 2 inspirational female lawyers on the wall in Jen's childhood bedroom? The answer is Erin Brockovich and the one and only Legally Blonde Elle Woods.
Excellent stuff.
Yes. Proper lawyer inspiration. But of course, coming from movies on the wall of Jen Walters. Love that. That's it. That's the 9 questions. Lots of entries. We have got our final lineup of winners, of people who've given us all the correct answers.
And who will go into the electronic tombola. That is Google. Yes, indeed. So thank you so much, fellow quizzers and defenders, for joining this bar exam. Into the draw go Adam Downing, Coffee and Vodka, Clyde Wheeler, Will Walton, Philippe Gurgle, Isidore Maya Souza, Vincent Hernandez, and Dr. Bob Phillips.
Absolutely. And the goodies that you're up with a chance of getting your hands on are either She-Hulk comic books or She-Hulk Funko Pops. I'll be in contact with the winner. Ask which one you like, because I know some people aren't big fans of Funko Pops and some people don't read comic books. So I'm going to give you the option. You tell me which one you want and they'll be winging their way to you as soon as I can order them. So there are 8 people in there. So Chris, give us a number between 1 and 8, right? Chris.
Yes.
Chris, would you turn on the electric tombola and get us a number between 1 and 8?
Yes. Hey Google, randomly choose a number between 1 and 8.
7.
7.
And with that drum roll, the winner of the She-Hulk bar exam is Vincent Hernandez.
Well done, Vincent.
Yes, well done, Vincent. We will be in contact, as Derek said, to see which of the choices you would like for your prize. But congratulations, Vincent, on being the winner of the She-Hulk bar exam. And of course, to everyone who wrote in with the answers to the questions. It's really great involvement from our fellow defenders and fellow quizzers.
Absolutely. Hope you had a lot of fun entering the bar exam.
Yes. Yeah. Good stuff.
Thanks again to everybody who sent us in feedback throughout the season as well for She-Hulk. That was a lot of fun hearing all your thoughts about how much was going on in each of the She-Hulk episodes. Great fun. Just a reminder, as always, the episodes of TV Podcast Industries are brought to you by our supporters over on Patreon, including Carola Clark. Thanks so much for all the support we're getting over on Patreon as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Carola.
Yes, thank you so much. It does mean so much to us because we do this for a bit of fun. But it's good to know that we can have your support to help keep the lights on, the servers going, the website up, the podcast feed spinning like a loom and spinning like a wheel of time, because the wheel spins and spins until season 2. And I'm just going to go and trail off now.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
I thought you trailed off a few minutes ago, Chris.
Good stuff. Let's go on to the other documentary that we have to talk about. There's going to be a bit of a shorter discussion than our discussion about Marvel Assembled, the making of She-Hulk. The other documentary we want to talk about is Director by Night, which is the making of documentary for Werewolf by Night. Chris, I know you didn't join us for our discussion about Werewolf by Night, which was our Halloween episode because you were traveling at the time. What did you think of Werewolf by Night overall?
I loved it. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. I am a huge fan of Hammer House of Horror. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of kind of horror films and or the B-movie ones as well.
Yeah.
So for me, this was a fantastic addition to, and it's also branching out. And oh my God, Man-Thing. Oh, he's amazing. I can't wait. I want the buddy cop of him and Jack Russell.
Yes.
It was just, so overall, I loved Werewolf by Night. I loved the style, the aesthetic, the choice, the direction, the lighting, the characters it introduced.
Yeah.
I want more of that, and I don't know whether we're going to get seasons or will we get more one shots. Mm-hmm. I could have done with more of that one shot, like an hour and a half.
Okay.
Give me the 90 minutes. Give me what happens next with the Bloodstone and things like that.
Yeah.
But overall, absolutely enjoyed
it. Welcome with the Hour. I thought it worked really well as a different offshoot from Marvel, because they have their movies now and have these special presentations. We're going to have another one coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and of course now they have their 6-episode half-hour shows and their hour-long 6-episode shows. So loads of different variation coming out.
Yeah, they're mini animations with I Am Groot.
Absolutely. So loads of different options for them. This was a very interesting one, a black and white horror movie releasing 3 weeks before Halloween. And interestingly, this documentary is also really unusual, I think, for all of the stuff that we've covered in Marvel. Generally, the documentaries that we cover from Marvel, from the 616 documentaries that myself and John covered through all of these assembled documentaries, all of them have almost started with the purpose, and then they go out and film what they need to film, and then they make the documentary out of it. Whereas here, this documentary is really the path that Michael Giacchino has gone through to become a director, directed by his brother, Anthony Giacchino, who is taking all of the home movies that Michael made when he was a kid with all of his mates, and effectively talking you through the journey that he's gone through and what Michael has wanted to do. I thought this was a really inspirational documentary in itself. You know, this
this young kid who never missed an opportunity to get everybody around him involved in making movies, because that's what he wanted to do, and that's what everybody else wanted to do at the time. Everybody was really inspired to do that. I thought it was a really interesting kind of time capsule. And then we do get some behind the scenes, not as much as we see in the Assemble documentaries, but we do get a little bit of behind the scenes of Werewolf by Night. So I thought it was a really good, balanced documentary, as opposed to almost a PR piece for Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, it was definitely a documentary. And I have to say, I just really just loved it. I mean, it would, to me, if, you know, it would feel like them doing a similar thing with, say, J.J. Abrams or even with Spielberg to some extent. You know, it felt like, you know, just this path that Michael Giacchino has been on, you know, wanting to do movies, ultimately went on the musical side of it, through video games, being spotted based on that by J.J. Abrams and with Lost. And so I thought this was great. I mean, for me, the two primary reasons was just, I went on a nostalgic sugar rush with it, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I just was happy watching it, seeing these kids sort of just playing and messing, but, you know, then realizing the amount of time that it took Michael, you know, when he was talking about scratching the film in order to get the laser bolts on the film and for that to move. So having to do that, you know, kind of almost an imprecise stop motion on the reel of film. I love the fact that they played this in the auditorium of their school as well, a number of them, of which that school auditorium is like massive. I'm like going, yeah, we had nothing like that. I mean, that's like a proper theatre. I mean, we had a hall, do you know? Yeah. We should put chairs out to watch stage plays. And even, you know, this was like a full on like theatre. And so I was like, again, just thinking of like US schools doing things bigger, better, and certainly with more money than what I experienced.
But I did like the fact that when they all come back and visit the school, they're looking at them going, these are the exact same chairs we had here almost 40 years ago. The exact same floor is here. The exact same walls probably got painted, but it's all exactly the same. So while it is incredible to have an auditorium that size in the school, it's not like they updated it even once in the 30 years, which I thought was quite an interesting point they made.
I really enjoyed that, you know, they did the stage plays that were done by the school as well. And, you know, a lot of these...
That's where they all met.
These friends met in that way. Yeah. I loved the reunion at the end again. So for me, this was really felt like a nostalgic sugar rush. It was almost like when went to the cinema to watch Super 8, actually, you know, the movie by J.J. Abrams. But it was
a good movie.
Yeah, it really was. And again, it was just like that whole feel of just the late 70s, 80s, and this kind of, even like real cinema had this homemade quality to it in some respects. You know, obviously a lot more advanced, but you know, when you look at it now compared to the CGI, like we've just been talking about in She-Hulk, you know, it was just at a different stage in its development. So I loved all this.
But like the point is, I suppose this is the first generation that came after the big Star Wars blockbuster boom. Yeah. This was, you know, this is the kids that were, you know, 5 and 8 years old when Star Wars came out, and when Spielberg was really in his prime. You can see them doing, you know, a version of E.T. You can see them doing a version of Star Wars, of course, with
Indiana Jones
and Indiana Jones. Yeah, you can see all that stuff being inspirations for them, and that's that generation where the directors, the people behind the scenes of those movies, are saying effectively, I just had to wing it because nobody else was able to do it. So these kids are trying to wing it the same way. And now it's led to Michael Giacchino, now 30 years on, being able to direct an MCU movie.
Absolutely.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. It was unique. It was a different take on what we usually get as an assembled. This is the polar opposite of the marketing kind of side. This is a documentary about Michael, not about again his journey. And there's a bit kind of they do sprinkle in some, i.e. the monster, his first viewing of like the monsters, the heads, the props.
Yeah, but
it's not the prop. It's his reaction to the prop and Kevin's reaction to the prop. This is like, for me, this is the polar opposite of what we get on the marketing side.
Yes.
And I'm like, God, just give me somewhere in the middle. Just bring you now have me on both sides. I'm like, just come on, like, you're so close here, people. You kind of corrected so much. You went into a documentary, which, by the way, is interesting, is really fun to watch. I was enthralled watching this man's journey for the 5 months that they did it.
And I will say this isn't an assembled, just by the way, this is not an assembled. No. This is simply Director by Night is the name of this documentary. It's not an assembled. So,
but it is with all the other assembled in the category. Because that's how I found it, because it's been out a while. Yeah. So I enjoyed what they kind of showed. For me, it was just kind of like, okay, but when he told Kevin, he was like, I want Werewolf by Night, because I was always into the slightly weirder kind of comic books, the offshoots, and he got into Werewolf by Night, and he said to Kevin, that's what I want. He didn't go into further detail about why he loved that character, kind of who is Jack Russell. Because that's the thing. A lot of people probably don't know Werewolf by Night that much.
Absolutely. Hardly anybody does. Yeah. I think we're unusual in the fact that we kind of know Werewolf by Night, because that's where Moon Knight made his first appearance. Yeah. So we've all had connections with that character, really mostly through Moon Knight. But I think I would say what I took from that is, Giacchino has no particular connection with Werewolf by Night. He had a connection with all of those horror books like Tomb of Dracula, and he kind of said, if you're doing anything in that sphere, then give me a call.
Yeah. And also it was interesting realizing that, from school and college, his training was in filmmaking. And I guess just, as you go through that and as your life and potential career develops, the entry point into that became about music, which was massively successful. And so I love the fact that there's this opportunity here and that Marvel has given to effectively a key composer in their sort of wheelhouse of different movie scores, like Doctor Strange, like the opening sort of Marvel Studios sort of hurrah, I guess, all of that. So I thought that was really kind of nice, because the other side of this that I really, really enjoyed was just the whole family aspect as well. I mean, firstly, that his brother Anthony was directing this, and also just the moment where Anthony gives sort of a 1-page resume for his mum to read out, to see how it read and what she thought. And it mentions him composing the recent Batman, and she's like, is Batman in the Marvel universe? And he's like, no, that's DC. And she's like, oh, okay.
I know, I love her face, because that is the face of a mother who's been told that multiple times over the years. Who's been told, it's not Marvel, it's DC, Mom. How could you get this wrong? She just has that face where she goes, or she just gets really embarrassed by the fact that she should have gotten that right. Or she's been told many times that she shouldn't have got it right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she got it wrong. It's just a lovely face. I fell in love with his parents.
Yes, absolutely.
I love how respectful they are of his career in composing, because they understand it. And the idea that he should be this excited about making a Marvel movie for them is kind of, but he's already done a lot of really successful things. Why is he so excited about doing this other successful thing?
It was very, very, it was really, I mean, for want of a better word, it was really cute. But I agree. There was something warming about having, again, the nostalgic element. But I loved how it showed this supportive parents. And then I loved how all of a sudden they were kind of like, where they had that part in the documentary where they were showing how they did all their different stunt works, and they were putting sort of, bangers in their chest with tomato ketchup and all this.
Yep.
And, you know, being driven around, you know, different stunts, homemade stunts effectively that they were doing. And there was almost that moment where the mum and dad were kind of, but we looked after them. They never got hurt. You know, there were some close moments, but, and I, you know, we weren't bad parents. I just really thought, I guess, you know, in the era where it was no mobile phones, you couldn't be tracked or whatever, you went off and did your thing. And it's like, all of a sudden, the first thing your parents would ever hear about anything is if you were being dragged back to the door by a neighbor or whoever, you know, by the ear. So I just loved that kind of, that side of it as well, because, you know, some of the stunt stuff that they were doing, it was just really good. I mean, even the one where one of the kids borrowed a sword that was in his mum's house on the wall. And it's like, if I hadn't have ducked then, because, you know, I would have had this sword like swipe right across my neck kind of thing. So,
absolutely,
you know, fair dues. It was, organized, stunt work.
It was. And I suppose that's what kind of why his parents shouldn't have had to worry at all, because I know a lot of us that grew up in the 80s did stupid stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
But it definitely wasn't on camera.
No.
And at least Michael Giacchino was trying to make sure that it looked good and trying to make sure that it was done like he'd seen in the movies, as opposed to someone throwing a stick of dynamite at one of their mates. You know, he was throwing a stick of dynamite in a pool to make an explosion and see what it would look like on camera. He wasn't trying to see if his friends could play catch with a bomb, you know.
But even that moment where he's asked, where, as, you know, a teenager, did you get and source a stick of dynamite?
I had friends. I love it. I love it. Good stuff. I must admit, I really enjoyed this documentary. I watched it twice, and the reason why was because I loved spending time with Anthony Giacchino. I feel like there was a different intention with this. I felt like this was Michael after COVID saying, come along to his brother. His brother had filmed everything all the way throughout his life, to come along with him and make the documentary about Werewolf by Night. And because of so many COVID restrictions in the film, you could see everybody was still wearing their masks and people were stepping away from each other a lot. I feel like Anthony might have been pushed to the back a little bit. So because of that, he decided to expand the story and tell the story of how Michael got to where he was. I've said it before, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. It's turned into a very different and very good documentary about Michael Giacchino and a bit about the moments on set with Werewolf by Night. So I really enjoyed this one.
No, and you see that the biggest one is where the stars start to come over, and he's like, note to self, don't get in the way of cast and crew. And then while they're filming, he's no longer with his brother. He's at the back with the light, that the little switch that does the bell.
Yeah. I loved that. And that
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But also I was like, oh, you got relegated there. You got told there's not enough space here. You need to jump out the back.
Yeah.
And he found something cool. And then you see that he said during certain scenes, you see that he is actually operating the dolly, or he's operating the actual craned camera that sits on the pack. And you literally have the cameraman holding him, pulling him around to get the shot. And I thought that was really cool. This is the most documentary, if that makes sense.
Of documentaries ever.
Well, no, I'm not going that far. That is a different thing. But this was the most, where we have a lot of the other ones are making ofs or promotional kind of snippets, PR smashed together. This was a documentary about the director by night and day and a couple of months.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any last thoughts on Directed by Night?
Not really. Just I just loved the whole ethos and feel of this. Yeah.
And you mentioned it already. I did love the reenactment of their movie with the kids coming back, doing the reunion at the end at their school, and some of them saying their lines back like they'd said 35 years before, and I thought that was a lovely little touch to close out this documentary.
The fact that he remembered it.
Yeah.
The guy was like, he's like, I'm going to prompt you this, and then he just went, and I was like, oh so wow, you have been living that scene in your head for many years.
I love it. But wouldn't you, if you had an Oscar-winning mate that directed you in a movie, you'd probably be at home watching that movie going, it could have been me. Could have been me. Brilliant stuff. That's the end of our documentary part of the podcast. We are going to move away from Marvel, and we are going to finally
yes,
announce the winners of our Obsidian Bar Quiz, the Umbrella Academy quiz, which was a lot more difficult than our Marvel quiz.
It was.
I wasn't allowed to give as many hints as I'm able to do on Marvel, on the Marvel shows. We had 9 episodes, only half an hour long for She-Hulk, so a lot less was happening in the episodes to pull out questions. So we don't have as many people in the draw for the Umbrella Academy. So congratulations to those of you who have made it through the draw. Let's kick off with our first question, and there may be spoilers here for any of you who haven't finished Umbrella Academy Season 3. If you're not going to join us for the Answer to the Bar Quiz, thanks for joining us for our discussion about these 2 documentaries on Marvel.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much. But should we get into the question and answers?
Let's kick off with question 1 for Season 3, Episode 1 of Umbrella Academy, Meet the Family. Question 1 was, how many sandwiches does Lester Pocket pack in his case as he prepares for his journey? The answer was 6.
Can you say that question one more time? Because that seems like a tongue twister.
I worked my hardest to get that right once and one go only. John?
Yes, on to question 2 from the episode World's Biggest Ball of Twine. Who cut the ribbon at the opening of the Hotel Obsidian? It was the one and only Sir Reginald Hargreaves.
Little did we know that would be a spoiler for the season when we gave out that question at the beginning.
Yep. Little did we know. Old Reggie. For episode 3, Pocketful of Lightning, we had the following question. What is the name of the newsstand where Luther buys chewing gum and condoms? The answer is Finch Square Newsstand. Yes, that is Finch Square Newsstand for all of your essentials, chewing gum and condoms.
Yeah, and we said buy. I don't think he bought any of them. He stole them when everybody disappeared, didn't he?
That's true. Basically. Yes.
In episode 304, Kugel Blitz, question 4 was, what are the names of the 5 cities and towns that Harlan and Sissy moved through in the opening flashback? They were Salt Lake City, Valley City, Bend, Tampa Bay and Oakland. They also went through New Mexico as well, just in case you wanted to grab a 6th. So we will give 5 points for any of those.
Yes, definitely. For episode 5, Kindest Cuts, the following question. What food does Klaus and his mother share on the beach while Klaus is dead? It is menudo.
Very good.
Ew. For episode 6, Marigold, question 6. What is Stanley's favourite snack combination or last meal? The answer is a slushy and a Slim Jim. Yes, slushy and a Slim Jim.
Classic combination. All your basic vitamins and minerals in there.
And sugars.
For episode 307 of We Design, question 7 was, how many dead bodies do Herb and Dot make their way past to get to Leela at the Infinite Switchboard in 1953? They made their way past 3 bodies. 3 bodies.
For episode 8, Wedding at the End of the World. What is the dress code for Luther and Sloane's wedding? It is black tie.
Seems like a really obvious answer to that question. And whether you'd watched the episode or not, you probably would have assumed black tie for a wedding, right?
It was an easy one. But if you think of what the Umbrella Academy is, it could have been anything. It could have been fishbowl and astronauts.
Yeah, it could have been.
For episode number 9, 7 Bells, we had the question, in the grand tradition of the legend of 7, the Norse had 7 of what? Again, in the grand tradition of the legend of 7, the Norse had 7 of what? The answer is sleepers. Yes, sleepers. Much like that question gave me.
7 sleepers sleeping.
Yes.
And the final question for Umbrella Academy Season 3 for Episode 10, Oblivion. The question was, who are the members of the 3 groups sent off by Reggie to explore the Hotel Oblivion for the sigil? The answer was, Group 1 was Alison, Victor and Number 5. Group 2 was Diego and Leela. Group 3 was Sloane and Ben. There you go. Those were the 3 groups that went off. We were doing so well, of course. Technical issues now as we are about to announce the winner of the Umbrella Academy Obsidian Bar quiz. So Chris isn't here, just myself and John. We're going to do the draw for the winner of the Umbrella Academy quiz. Well done to Clover, Dr. Bob, Phillips, Victor Von Doom and Brandy Anderson, who all got the questions correct.
Yes.
Well done.
Absolutely. Well done, fellow alumni and quizzers.
Absolutely. Lots of very difficult questions there. 10 questions, lots of different answers. So well done to all of you for getting all the answers correct.
Yes.
Okay, I'll try this one, John, I think.
Yes. Fire away in the electronic tombola. That is Google.
Hey, Google, give me a random number between 1 and 4.
2.
Well done, Dr. Bob Phillips.
Yes. Congratulations, Dr. Bob. For winning the Umbrella Academy Obsidian Bar Quiz.
Yes, and just like with the She-Hulk Attorney at Law bar exam, I'll be in contact with you to ask whether you want some Umbrella Academy comic books, some collected graphic novels, or some Funko Pops from Umbrella Academy. Well done, Dr. Bob. Thanks to everybody for entering. That was really good.
Absolutely.
And yes, those will be winging their way to you very soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow quizzers and alumni, for taking part in the pub quiz. It was a tough one this time.
It was. Technical issues resolved. So back to myself, John, and Chris for the rest of the podcast. Want to absolutely say a huge thank you to Dr. Bob, who, along with each question for the Umbrella Academy, gave us a new cocktail for each of the 10 episodes for the show, and they are fantastic. I've tasted 1 or 2 of them.
Yes, we have been working our way through the adult slushies, I guess.
Well, yes.
I didn't get any.
You haven't been home and you haven't been over to our house for cocktail night, Chris. So,
it's true.
Yeah.
It is true on many
We
levels.
will do cocktail night.
Yay! I get to get messed up.
And thanks again to everybody who's listened along with us for this episode of TV Podcast Industries. We said it will be back next time in Marvel with the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which is coming out on November 25th, so not long to wait. The Holiday Special, Christmas Special, a month before Christmas, of course, because Marvel like to do that.
Yes, and next week will be the final episode from our coverage of DC's Pennyworth, the origins of Batman's butler.
That's right. I hate that subtitle, but hey, it's got Batman in it. Easy to find on HBO Max. We have also recently covered Black Panther. Chris, I know, is going along to see that in the cinema tomorrow, so we're not going to spoil anything for him on that, but you can find our coverage of Black Panther over on TV Podcast Industries. I'm going to give a big shout out here because the embargo has lifted and we can say that we've seen the first 3 episodes of the new Willow series available on Disney+. You'll be able to get those first 3 episodes at the end of the month on the 30th of November. And myself and John watched those a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely loved them. This is exactly the action adventure comedy that you remember from Willow as a kid. It works really well. First episode, it's just establishing things, and then the other 2 get the comedy rolling. And I'm expecting a lot more as the season goes on. Not sure we're going to be able to cover it here on TV Podcast Industries. Got a lot to do as the rest of the year closes out, but check into Willow and see if you enjoy it when it comes out at the end of the month.
Yes, and I strongly suggest if you are not, watch Andor. That's it. Just watch Andor.
Absolutely.
My God, it's just mwah,
amazing,
fantastic spycraft set in the universe of Star Wars.
Absolutely, it is brilliant.
Yeah.
And big tip for everybody: there is a post-credit scene on the finale of Andor. Watch it; it's well worth watching.
Yes, it certainly is. I love that show. I want more Andor.
Yep.
Well, good thing you're getting it.
Yeah, it's filming at the moment.
I know.
Yeah. So go watch it. Great show as well. That's probably enough to keep you going for the next couple of weeks. We'll be back very soon with our Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special coverage. And thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. If you've liked what you hear, if you like the previous shows, the things we cover, and everything in between, make sure you support us by heading on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Energies, where you can support us for any ongoing monthly amount. Helps keep the lights on, the server running, and things like that. Don't have that to give? Don't worry. You can buy us a coffee by going to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, where you can do a one-off donation and essentially buy us a coffee that helps keeps our editor supreme in caffeine as he toils away the wee hours, making sense of what we record and putting it out. Finally, if you ain't got that, don't worry. It's all good too. You can share the podcast, because sharing the podcast is what, gentlemen?
Sharing the love.
So for now, from me, bye-bye.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow Defenders, for joining us on this wrap-up of the two makings of, or documentaries, however you want to describe them. It's a pleasure, as always. But before we chat to you again, remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending.
Bye.
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 Bye.